This video is sponsored by Marvel Dice Throne Expansion Pack. More on that later on in the video. A time-displaced hero, a journeyman director, and a reluctant star all add up to the final piece of the original MCU puzzle. Hi, I'm Pat Whalen with yet another MCU podcast, and this is Everything You Should Know, Captain America, the First Avenger. Thank you to Marvel Dice Throne for sponsoring today's video. Marvel Dice Throne is a fast and fun board game fit for all ages. Whether you're just looking for an exciting game date night, a fun family challenge, or to take on your own Avengers team of board game enthusiasts, Marvel Dice Throne is right for everyone. Each player selects one of 8 heroes to face off in head-to-head battles to see who earns the right to take the throne. Gameplay involves strategically rolling dice to activate special abilities, playing unique hero cards to manipulate results, and upgrading your hero board to power your stats. Marvel Dice Throne is a game you're going to want to return to over and over again. Not only will you want to play as all 8 characters, including Loki, Scarlet Witch, Miles Morales, and Captain Marvel, you're also going to want to master each character's special skills and strategy to see how they fare against their opponents. You can support Marvel Dice Throne on Kickstarter today and reserve your copy. Check the link in the description to head over to Marvel Dice Throne Kickstarter right now and get rolling to see who takes the throne. To truly understand Captain America, we need to understand the character's place in comic book history. Before American comic books were introduced in the early 1930s, they were preceded by pulp novels. These cheap, disposable, mass-produced stories features the likes of action-adventure heroes Doc Savage, Kazar, Buck Rogers, and the Shadow. The comic books at the time mostly consisted of funny-page cartoons. This would all change in May 1938 when Superman was published in the pages of Action Comics #1. The first superhero kicked off the golden age of comics, but the road to get there was complicated for creators Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster. In 1933, Siegel and Shuster first published the short story Reign of the Supermen, with the hope that their creation would be picked up for syndicated publication. After years of refinement, the Superman character finally found a home in the National Comics Action Comics anthology series. While many core tenets of the character have remained the same, such as the Clark Kent identity, the blue tights and red cape, and fighting for the little guy, some of the more Superman elements, such as Brainiac, Kryptonite, and Lex Luthor, had yet to be introduced. Action Comics #1 briefly told the story of baby Kal-El, sent to Earth only to grow up to become Superman. The first issue focused on stories that the creators saw every day in the real world. Stories grounded in reality about gangsters, domestic abuse, and corrupt senators. Superman was dubbed a success and more superheroes soon followed. Batman debuted in 1939, and in the following years we met The Flash, Captain Marvel, Namor, the Human Torch, Robin, and Wonder Woman. Comic books were everywhere, and the colorful superheroes that resided within them were forming an American mythology on par with those of Greek gods and goddesses. As the threat of World War II approached, the rise of patriotism was evident in the pages of comic books, with constant calls from superheroes to join the war effort and buy war bonds.
Sell a few bonds, bonds buy bullets, bullets kill Nazis. Bing, bang, boom.
Enter Captain America. December 1940. Steve Rogers, Captain America, is introduced in Captain America Comics #1 as he's famously punching Hitler on the front cover. Creators Joe Simon and Jack Kirby pulled ideas from their own lives. As 2 Jewish American men, they were very aware of Hitler's growing rise to power. As Simon said, "We knew what was going on over in Europe. World events gave us the perfect comic book villain, Adolf Hitler, with his ranting, goose-stepping, and ridiculous mustache. So we decided to create the perfect hero who would be his foil. I did that first sketch of Captain America, and Jack and I did the entire first issue before showing it to publisher Martin Goodman at Timely Comics. While Goodman loved it, some Americans did not. The issue premiered a year before the attack on Pearl Harbor and America was not quite ready to face the realities of the war. We know the story of Captain America. Steve Rogers is a sickly young man with a desire to join the army and fight Nazis. Deemed too ill to serve, he volunteers to participate in a government experiment that transforms him into the super soldier Captain America. He's joined by his young sidekick, James Bucky Barnes, on adventures to stop Nazi spies and beat back the forces of Hitler. When America finally entered the war, Jack and Joe, like many of the other creators, artists, and filmmakers of the time, enlisted. Joe Simon served in the Coast Guard, and Jack Kirby was a member of F Company of the 11th Infantry Brigade, U.S. Army, which saw action in Normandy. Kirby and Simon produced a backlog of material to take the character through their time in the war. Captain America quickly became one of the most popular characters, buoyed by America's patriotism. The success didn't last much past the war, however. With Hitler and the Nazis defeated, the need for Captain America was questioned. Sales figures quickly fell off, and by the end of the decade, the anthology series, now titled Captain America's Weird Tales, didn't even include the Star-Spangled Hero. There was an attempt to revive the hero in the early 1950s, but readers' waning interest and regulation of the industry severely hampered readership. Through the 1950s and early 60s, Captain America was dormant. In 1963, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby made an attempt to revive the character in Strange Tales number 114, which sees Fantastic Four member the Human Torch partner with Captain America in an acrobatics exhibition. The end of the issue revealed that this Cap was an imposter. The point of the issue, Lee explains in the back matter material, was to test fans' response in seeing more Captain America. The reaction was overwhelmingly positive, and Steve Rogers would return to comics less than 6 months later. Lee and Kirby reintroduced Captain America in Avengers number 4 in 1964. In doing so, they retconned many of the post-war stories, saying that towards the end of World War II, Captain America had fallen into the Atlantic Ocean while attempting to disarm a rocket. According to the new origin, he had been frozen and trapped in suspended animation since that time. When he exited the ice, he was now a man out of time. Captain America would join the Avengers, and his stories would explore him dealing with villains of his past, as well as adapting to 1960s society. Steve Rogers would go on to headline his own series and become a leading member of the Avengers. Later installments of this series would explore Steve's more recent adventures and other men that have taken up the Stars and Stripes. This may surprise you, but many attempts were made to bring Captain America to the big screen. The first attempt was the 1944 film Serial. This series was loosely based on the comic book character. Loosely being a generous word here. District Attorney Grant Gardner is actually Captain America. There's no shield, no super soldier serum, and no Nazis. This has a lot to do with the fact that the script was originally written for another character, but was adapted when the opportunity to license the Captain America property became available. The serial is most noteworthy because it's the first ever film based on a Marvel comic property. The 1970s saw 3 adaptations. A bizarre Turkish film called Three Dev Adam, or Three Giant Men, which featured Cap, Spider-Man, and El Santo, a Mexican luchador. Captain America and its sequel Captain America Death Too Soon both premiered in 1979. These featured Reb Brown as the son of former government agent Captain America, donning an Evel Knievel-like uniform and riding a motorcycle. Fun fact, Sir Christopher Lee stars as the villain in this film. The 1990 film, which happened to be the first of these to be for a full-length theatrical release, was the closest to the comic book storyline. It starred Matt Salinger as Cap and was released to celebrate Captain America's 50th anniversary. As you may have guessed, none of these adaptations were received favorably. After the success of the Blade films, Marvel once again made an attempt to bring Captain America to the big screen. Production was set to begin in the early 2000s. However, a copyright lawsuit brought by Joe Simon delayed the project. Simon and Marvel would settle out of court, with Simon receiving licensing royalties. Marvel then wanted to sell the rights to Warner Brothers, but film producer David Mizell forced them to reconsider, building out a plan to develop the project in-house. Marvel Studios producer Avi Arad saw Captain America's potential in the Man Out of Time story, citing the Back to the Future trilogy as reference. Captain America was supposed to be the first hero in what we now call the MCU. But when a focus group, consisting mostly of children, became enamored with the flashy power of Iron Man, Marvel selected the Armored Avenger over Cap. Steve Rogers' journey back to the big screen was once again put on pause. Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely were tapped to write the script for Captain America: The First Avenger, and Joe Johnston was hired to direct. Marcus and McFeely are now essentially Marvel's in-house writing staff, with credits for Thor: The Dark World, all 3 Captain America films, Guardians of the Galaxy, and Avengers: Infinity War and Endgame. Johnston began his career as a visual effects artist on the first 2 Star Wars films and Indiana Jones films. He's also directed fun, action-packed, visually heavy films including Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, The Rocketeer, Jumanji, Jurassic Park 3, and October Sky. I bet you had no idea those films were all directed by the same guy, and those films were cited by Kevin Feige as one of the reasons why Johnston was brought on board. Casting Captain America wasn't as easy. While every young man in Hollywood, from Ryan Phillippe to John Krasinski, auditioned for the role, Joe Johnston had only one guy in mind: Chris Evans. But Evans wasn't so easy to convince. He turned down the role 3 times, and despite starring in the Fantastic Four franchise and a handful of successful films earlier in his career, his main concern was that in taking on the Captain America role, he would both lose his anonymity and be contractually trapped in making 6 bad films.
A lifestyle change. I really enjoy my anonymity. I like going to a ball game. I like being able to walk the streets. I've never had paparazzi park outside my house.
It was only after a conversation with Iron Man star Robert Downey Jr. that Evans agreed to join the team. Hugo Weaving was cast as the villainous Red Skull. Tommy Lee Jones and Stanley Tucci joined as Colonel Phillips and Dr. Erskine, respectively. Sebastian Stan played Cap's sidekick Bucky Barnes, and Haley Atwell played tough-as-nails love interest Peggy Carter. This was a switch from the comics, as Steve has historically been romantically connected to Peggy's niece, Sharon. But we'll get to that in a later episode. Even as early as the 5th movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, each film was serving dual roles, introducing a new superhero and bridging towards the next installment. The First Avenger needed to introduce not only another hero, but the leader of the would-be Avengers team. And while 95% of the film takes place in the 1940s, the film ends with Steve Rogers waking up in 2012 to be introduced to Samuel L. Jackson's Nick Fury. It was an excellent tease and an incredible way to hype up the conclusion to Phase 1. Captain America: The First Avenger earned $370 million worldwide and became the 3rd highest grossing film set during World War II, behind Saving Private Ryan and Pearl Harbor. Critics also praised the film. Roger Moore of the Orlando Sentinel said, "Johnston has delivered a light, clever, and deftly balanced adventure picture, with real lump-in-the-throat nostalgia, with Nazis who make the best villains, and with loving references to Star Wars and Raiders of the Lost Ark." Captain America: The First Avenger propelled the character into the MCU and set the stage for the groundbreaking Marvel's The Avengers, which would premiere a year later. If you're interested in reading more about Steve Rogers and not sure where to start, you can check out our recommended reading video that features The Marvels Project by Ed Brubaker with art by Steve Epting, Captain America and Bucky: The Life of Bucky Barnes by Mark Andreyko, Brubaker and art by Chris Samney, and Captain America: The Mark Waid, Ron Garney, and Andy Kubert Omnibus. Let us know in the comments what you're reading. Thank you so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed this look back on Captain America: The First Avenger. Who's your favorite Captain America? And would you like to see Chris Evans return to the role? Thanks again to Marvel Dice Throne for sponsoring today's video. Remember to check out the link in the description to support their Kickstarter. And as always, I'm Pat Whalen with yet another MCU podcast on Forgotten Entertainment. We'll see you next time.
What the shit?